Hello, beautiful people. I am here to let you know that Tim died about weeks ago, and I only found out a week and a half ago, and I took my time to process all of that, as they like to say. And I'm not much one for public days of emotion or public grief or anything like that. So I wanted to take that time for myself. However, I thought it was only appropriate to let everyone know. So I have some kind of problem with sound, I'm being told. Let me see if I can figure that out. What the hell? Echo cancellation is on. Automatically adjusting mic volume. How about now? Still bad? I understand how I'm doubling because I'm not playing any audio. Okay, I heard one person say it sounds better now. Wow, delayed echo. That makes no sense. Perhaps there is a ghost in the machine. All right. So it's still. What the fuck? Even technology won't allow me to do anything with dignity. Good God. Yeah. Let me just see if I can change my mic. Hang on. Okay, now I've switched to the crap mic. And now I'm going to go back to the good one. And hopefully it will work. All right, how about now? I'm going to pour myself a drink while we wait to see. And with any luck, it will work better now. Good mic has issues. Crap mic good. Good mic crap. Wow. How on earth would this piece of shit have an echo? All right, well, this will be my last try, and I'll switch to another mic. I don't know what the hell is going on here. There was something very strange when I was waiting to do this. I had the whole studio set up, and I was ready to go, and then it just... trying to remember what even happened. Oh, that's right. So suddenly, my clip was playing, my intro clip, which I had queued up, and yeah, I don't know what's going on. That's the last thing I can think of. It keeps screwing up. I guess what I'll do is I'll just... well, somebody was coming from the crappy mic too. For God's sake, man. All right. So let's take the headphones out. Make sure it's not that. Bluetooth is off. Headphones are up. Yeah, let me just see if it works. If I put it on the crappy mic, and we'll just go from there. Because if I restart, it's going to be all mucked up, because it's going to be two clips. Let me leave this studio and come back in. How about now? Check, check. Damn, still same problem. Okay, but apparently there was lit when I was using the crappy mic. All right, I'll switch to the other. Yes, I'll switch to headphones, and we're just gonna shut the little animal down, because this is frankly absurd. Never ever had this problem before. All right, how about now? Crappy mics like iron sights, always ready. All right, still screwed up? Okay, so this is all right. All right, fine. Oh my God. Oh my God, it's like I came to speak at a funeral and came clumping with dog shit on the hill. All right. So, yeah, probably my computer. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Uh, all right. I'm shutting down and starting back up. I very much apologize, ladies and gentlemen. This is absolutely ridiculous. I apologize. I did not have to put up shit. I'm going to go ahead and restart. So it's going to be a few minutes. Apologies. I will be back. All right, how about now? I'll just wait and see. Is anyone able to hear me? All right, I'm back. And it sounds as though it's working. And I can't believe this stream stayed up. Wow. Okay, cool. So, Tim died, and I found out about it a couple days later. His wife called me. I believe he died on Saturday, the 27th, and I found out a couple of days later, so that was almost 2 weeks ago. And yeah, he had been in and out of the hospital. I think the third time he went in was the last time. And each time he was in there for a while, and there were people who, said that he had this problem and another problem, and he simply did not listen to them. And he knew quite a bit about medicine himself. He had a considerable amount of training in the kind of medical care you have to give as a soldier. And his father was a physician, and he had done a considerable study of anatomy and related things like that himself. So he was not the kind of person to listen. And I think probably as he got on in years, he was even less the sort of person to listen. So he had been in a few times, and the time before the last one, his wife called me up and said that they were going to do some kind of open heart surgery because he had pneumonia and he might have congestive heart failure going on. And he had insisted he had some problems with his vagus nerve. And anyway, apparently some nurse said that he was getting violent with her and she felt threatened. And I'm like thinking to myself, he's so messed up, he couldn't get up, couldn't get out of bed. He's an old man. He's lying in a hospital bed. And yeah, apparently some nurse said she was threatening him. And as he explained it, he was telling her not to perform some kind of procedure she was going to perform. Anyway, they had gone from, how do I put this? I had gone from hearing that within 2 days he was going to be having open heart surgery to getting off the phone with his wife, and then a couple hours later suddenly having my Skype ring. And I'm talking to Tim at home, sitting at his desk in front of the computer like he generally would. And he's telling me that they let him out of the hospital. And I'm like, wait, they went from telling you needed open heart surgery to discharging you? Yeah, apparently they, from what I heard, they were saying that they didn't want to have him there anymore because he seemed like a threat. I have no idea. All I got to say is I hope I do not have to go anywhere near a hospital anytime soon, and I hope that none of you do either, because they are so horribly addled and corrupt in so many ways that it's appalling. It's absolutely appalling. And so this last time he went in, and they said, yeah, he's got this pneumonia. We really have to treat it right. So they put him on some kind of special antibiotics, and then he seemed to be doing okay. Then they put him on some kind of a ventilator, and I'm like, well, shit, that doesn't sound good. And then a few days later, he came up out of that and was conscious and had been talking to his wife. And then I heard that his son was going to see him. And I figured I just hadn't heard from them for a while because his son was in town. He was spending time with them, maybe getting back home. And then I got a call from his wife saying that he had died. So yeah, he has moved on, as it were. And I spoke to him a few days before he went in the hospital that last time, and he was just saying, he basically needs to endure what he is going through now. And I guess he was enduring it. I certainly never heard him complain about it in any of the time, and it was kind of screwing with him for 3 years or so. So yeah, that's sort of the background. I realize it's not concise, and maybe folks have questions about that part of it. There's not much that I know. And to be honest, it's not like he's coming back. So, I'm not really at this point very concerned with what killed him. His wife isn't either. I told her that she could speak to lawyers about that. Discharging from somebody from a hospital 2 days before you say that he has to have heart surgery is pretty questionable to me. Just a wee bit questionable, but she, like her husband, did not give a fuck and figured that none of that was going to bring him back. As I understand it, he asked that he be cremated and that his ashes be thrown into the compost heap. So his wife has cremated him, but has opted thus far not to throw his ashes into the compost heap. So yeah, that's that. So enough about him dying. There's my memory of him living, and I come from the New Orleans school, where all my people are from on both sides. At least as far back as my father's mother. They're from Kansas, but yeah. You're supposed to throw a party, and I don't know that I'm up for a party, but I know that Tim does not and did not give a fuck. And the last thing he would want would be a bunch of moping. And I'm certainly not going to be doing that for all of you publicly. I've coughed up all the various things that need coughing up thus far. So I thought I'd just talk a little bit about him and remember a few things. And then just take questions from people. And also I want to point out, let me check and see if it's... Well, I mean, there are a few things. This is all going to come out a mess. There's no saving this conversation or this live stream anyway, with the cascading series of fuck-ups with which it opened. So I'm going to be all over the place. One thing that I do want to mention is that he had a clip called Death, and it's published, and it's still up. I'll put the link to it in the chat here, shall I? This was after he started getting pretty fucked up. But here it is. If you want to know his thoughts on death, there's the link for it, and it should become immediately apparent that he did not give a fuck. What else? I am going to be... Basically, there's a whole bunch of Tim's stuff that I simply turned off on YouTube. It's available, much of it, over on... BitChute, and much of it is available over on Odyssey. However, there is some that isn't, and there is one. There is one clip that's an old Chainsmoke discussion before we live streamed, back when I pre-recorded them and had to put them together. There's one clip I never posted because we got in this long argument about Jews and circumcision. And I decided I'm not putting that shit up. But that clip is still around, so I'm going to go find the original files I have for when I captured them during our Skype call, and I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to put it up there. I'm also going to go back through. I think what I'm going to do on Odyssey is just set up a Chainsmoke channel. I'm not sure. I think I kind of want to put all his stuff in one place, everything that he was on. So there will probably be probably be a Chainsmoke channel over there. There's also some other stuff I need to look at. I've got 10 years of written correspondence with him from when he was in prison, and there's a lot of really interesting, good stuff in that. So I don't know. I have to think it through and figure out what I want to do with it. The other thing is that there is news on my end. Kind of ironic, since he's up in Tennessee, that it finally looks like I'm going to be able to run to the hills. I'm going to try to get the hell out of where I am and get up into the hills of Tennessee. Sadly, he's dead now. But I'm still going to get the fuck out of here. So, yeah. So that's another thing. There's going to be a little bit of a delay. I'm signing a contract on my house, hopefully, On Monday, they're going to have a 10-day period to do their due diligence and, send inspectors over and all that crap. And if I clear that, I will be heading over to places that are not here. So that's just another thing. This channel is definitely going to continue. I am definitely still here, but there is likely to be a little bit of up and down if I can move forward as I wish to with moving. For those who are just coming in, I see Le Plérome. Plérome is here. My friend Tim died. So that's the Press F thing. What else did I want to talk about? Well, I wanted to say he was a man, and taking him all for all, I shall not look upon his like again. And in particular, I think it's worth noting that he was constant. He was a shockingly constant man. He did not shift. I'm lucky enough to have a small handful of very, very close friends. And with all of them, you get ups and downs. Or you might catch them one day when they're bitchy or in a bad mood or something. He always had self-control and was always a gentleman and never... he was just constant. I've never seen anything like that before. Ever. With anyone, where it actually was what he said, always. I mean, not his prediction that Trump would win, but in terms of his own behavior and what he would do. And in terms of his predictions, that business with Trump was one of the very, very few instances in my life where I saw him say something was going to happen that didn't. Of course, that was outside his control. Constant. And that really stands out against a background of people who say one thing and do another. Life is full of people who say one thing and do another. And until I met him, even with my closest friends, even I myself have said I was going to do things and didn't do them, or couldn't control my temper, or ended up being snappy, or whatever the hell it was. It's a very strange thing to see a person that never did that. Ever. So, what else? I'll show you what he looked like. It was very strange because for a long, long time, he wouldn't let anybody take a photograph of him. Like, seriously, wouldn't let anyone take a photograph of him. Ever. And in fact, there was one time when he was present when a very good friend of mine's daughter was born. And they snapped a picture of him at the bedside. And that was the first time I'd ever seen a photograph of him, because he was notorious for absolutely refusing to allow any photographs to be taken of him. And you can see him in that photo kind of looking up, not being real happy. I see Brian Salee is in the house. Good to see you, my friend. Very good to see you. And speaking of people who actually knew Tim personally, I should say to Lital, who very kindly sent him a number of gifts. One of them was a sweater, a large and comfortable sweater or sweatshirt of some kind. And I was talking with his wife, and she was saying that he really wanted to say thank you to her, that he had very much enjoyed having it, that it kept him warm all the time. It was super comfortable. He was just always marveling at how nice it was that she had sent him that gift, which he was wearing quite often there before he died. So, yeah, Tim would never let anyone take a picture of him. And then suddenly, when I moved back from Turkey, from living there for the second time, I said, yeah, I'm thinking about doing this channel. And I said, would you be interested in coming on? And he said, yeah, which really tripped me out. Only those people who knew him personally, as I did, understand how very real that prohibition about taking pictures of him was. But we used to hang out on the weekends together, and I was busy doing drawings of different people who were there at those meetings, and I did a drawing of him. I'll share it with you guys in just a minute. It's from back in 1991. Knew the guy for 31 years. But yeah, I see that John Ski, hello John Ski. John Ski is in the house, gentleman and a scholar, is asking about his wife, and it's remiss of me not to have said anything about her. She's more private than he is, believe it or not. And she is actually up with her people in Tennessee because it's her side of the family, or she's the one who's from Tennessee. He was up there to be around her and her people on the mountain where they live. So I've spoken with her a few times. She's as good as can be expected. And she's not very public with anything either. So yeah, I think she's just, she's taking time to herself now, because not only is there the whole business of him having died, but there is also the business of all the stress of having gone back and forth in ambulances and dealing with hospital people and all the rest of the nonsense. So yeah, as far as I know, she is good. I hope to speak with her again before too long. She's taking time to herself. She has not asked for anything. Please do not send, if you want to send me money for the channel and that kind of thing, please do, but do not send me anything for Tim. I am not requesting money for him. I don't have any plans to forward any through to anyone. So please, people have asked me earlier, it was very kind of them, if there's anything for funerals and the rest, but Tim did not give a fuck about funerals. And yeah, and as far as I understand it, all that's taken care of. When I next talk to his wife, I will ask her how she's doing and if anything is necessary. But if experience is any lesson, she's not gonna want anything. But yeah, I understand that she's as well as can be expected. And for people who are just coming in, yeah, Tim died. He had been in and out of the hospital. He had suffered from several strokes. Towards the end, apparently he was having heart problems as well as pneumonia. There wasn't anything going on with the coof. They, of course, obsessively tested him for that, and there was none of that going on. So, yeah, it seems like stuff started to just break down, and it cascaded. I saw somebody who was that 99 Iron Duke? Yes. Hello, by the way, 99 Iron Duke. Tim was 70, so he made it much, much, much further than anyone expected he would. Certainly much further than he expected he would. He used to tell stories about how he was doing what they called a confidence training course, and came tumbling from a great distance off of the top of a tower, landed on one leg and shattered it. And if I remember the story correctly, the physician in charge of dealing with him was related to someone else in the military that Tim had struck. And so there was all this talk about how he was going to lose his leg. And the way I heard the story, he made a call to his family, and his family made a call to the Everett Koop, who later became Surgeon General. And strings were pulled, and Tim explained that he was going to be leaving with his leg attached. So he didn't think, that was probably in his late 20s. He didn't think he was going to walk again. He should have been dead a long time ago. For those of you who don't know, the dent in his head that you guys always saw was from the butt of an AK-47 where he'd been struck. So yeah, he was beat up. He used to talk about having problems with his liver being swollen from Agent Orange. All kinds of problems. I see people in the chat talking about how he died from smoking, and that's not the case. I'm sure smoking didn't help him, but I have no real sense that smoking caused any of this. So what else? Oh, I see people saying sorry for my loss. I would tell him on the phone when I was talking to him these past weeks and months, I'd be like, hope you get better. It's entirely selfish. I'd love to, continue to have you around. And he'd say, yeah, I understand completely. And I said, yeah, it would really suck for you to be dead, from my perspective anyway. And then he just laughed, and he told the story of when Prince Diana died, and that mincing loiterer, what's his name, Elton John, broke down on television because apparently, Princess Di had died, and then somebody else he knew had died. And so he breaks down on television and said, why does this keep happening to me? And he and his wife just busted out laughing their asses off. And so when all you guys are talking about, sorry for your loss, talking to me, it makes me want to say, oh my God, why is this happening to me? And Tim would laugh because obviously he's the one who had to do whatever it is we do, whether it is scratch at the pearly gates, whether it's, get dumped down the shit-filled water slide to hell, whether it's crossing the Chinvat Bridge, who knows? Yeah. So, I don't even know what to say here, people, because this all seems so. I'm talking about a dear friend who's dead, and I'm still dealing with all of it, going through it, remembering, thinking, etc. And I'm talking to a camera in a room that's empty. I can just watch this chat screen scrolling by. This is very much a postmodern experience. So, yeah, I guess I can take questions if you guys have questions, or if there's something you want to ask me about. I think there's a lot about his past that he either didn't want to talk about or flatly was forbidden to talk about. Like I tried many, many times to get him to talk about the 1960s and the upheaval in the country. And he said, no, people involved with that are still alive and I can't talk about it. So, I'll show you the picture. Yeah, that's what I forgot. Let me see if I can find this. Now, I'm no great artist, and I have some talent for it, but at the time, I was literally picking it up again. I was one of those kids in school that would sit at the desk and not look at the teacher and just draw all day. But I had never undertaken it seriously. And around this time, when we were getting together on the weekends, I was just beginning to try to take it seriously and to draw people and to do portraits or whatever. So this is a 19-year-old drawing, and I'm not making any claims for it, but it actually does or did capture something of what he looked like then. Because when I met him, he must have been 39 or 40, right in there. So yeah, I'm blathering. Let me find this screen. Oh wait, I had to shut my computer down, so everything's shut down. Hang on, let me find this. Coming right up, ladies and gentlemen. I have to open Photoshop. Delicious cigarette. All right, let's see what we got here. There we go. Brian Salee will remember this, that nobody took pictures of Tim. All right, let me just switch this so I have fewer windows open blocking everything. There we go. At least some of that's gone. Surely I can make this go away. Go away. There we are. Share. There we go. So yeah, I drew that in 91. He didn't look skinny and old. I remember I showed this to his wife once, and she said, "You look so mean, Tim." And I said, he did. He did. The degree to which he was somebody who had an atmosphere about him of don't fuck with him is difficult to describe to anybody who wasn't there and didn't meet him. I'm sure Brian could talk about that. Yeah, I talked to a few of his friends over the past week. People who knew him. And that was the thing that really came out, because he had talked about youthful things that I can't repeat. And then he had talked about going into the military and going to very interesting places and doing very interesting things. And then coming back and working for law enforcement as well as the DEA, both in the U.S. and elsewhere, and working as a bounty hunter. And I remember he did some consulting with the FBI, if I remember correctly. If I'm remembering the story right, he actually did consult on all that business in Brownsville and Matamoros with Costanza, the weird Voodoo style cult, or Palomayombe, Santeria, all that kind of stuff. Pontos Riscados. He did a bunch of consulting on strange esoteric stuff and crime. Then after that, he had some sort of change within him that we never got any real clear details on. But he overwhelmingly forewent violence and started to take an interest in religion, I guess you could say. And for a number of years, he was traveling around making arrangements to open orphanages. He went to India for quite some time and was working with people there, making arrangements to open orphanages. Then he had to come back because there was some stuff going on with his son, and a court case. They were indicted and convicted his son for basically running something having to do with telemarketing that the government felt was fraudulent. And his old man, Tim, got roped into it. I'm not going to go into all of that here, but there are records online about that, and he's mentioned it before. He didn't hide it when we were talking. If anybody wants to look it up, you can see. There's a transcript. And there's even the part where the judge tried to get him to testify about something, and he flatly refused, and she got threatening with him. And he said, I believe I quote, he said, "Madam, I pity you." At which point he was held in contempt of court, and even though he had not at that point been convicted, he was put in jail for the rest of the trial. Yeah, and she took a very special interest in him. Whenever anything came up for appeal, she made sure to squash it. And, although he did get out, so did his son. Well before their sentences were supposed to end, it got overturned, and he got freed on something having to do with 2255s and the rest. He fought it himself, pro se, for 11 years, and got out. And his son, who was supposed to be in there for 34 years or something, fought it and actually overturned it. And it was shown that it was fucked up and unjust. And I think he did a total of 16 years or something out of the 34 they wanted to fuck him with. So Veruca Salt is saying, how did he die? It's not clear, but it looks like a combination of pneumonia, congestive heart failure, and the after effects of 2 strokes. At least 2. So let's take questions. Or if there's anything, since Brian also knew him, if there's anything that Brian remembers and wants me to bring up or talk about, I'll mention it. But questions, and we will see. Let me look back through here and see if there are any. You could say his life was interesting. Yeah. Scars across both forearms from knife fights. That mark from a rifle butt on his forehead. Yeah, you could say he was interesting. Yeah. Well, while I'm looking through here, I'll mention a couple of the songs he liked because I've gone back and listened to him a few times now. One of them is The Last Gunfighter. And you know what's strange? In keeping with those lyrics, he was spending a lot of time on the porch there in Tennessee looking out at the sun before he died. Another one he used to like to listen to was Hoyt Axton, Lightning Bar Blues. There are a lot of songs he got me into. He's the one who got me into the old military songs. You know, if you're looking for the sergeant, I know where he is. I know where he is. I know where he is. You know, hanging on the old barbed wire. He's the one who got me into the Corys. Why didn't you fight for Charlie? Why didn't you draw the sword? Why didn't you up and rally at the royal prince's word? See the northern clans advancing. Yeah. Lots of his old songs. So let me see. Killer T Cell says, Semigog, did he teach you martial arts? Well, yes and no. Not physically very much. I mean, when I first met him, when he was still more hardcore, yeah, he did some things like, I said, what if they put me in a headlock? And he said, put me in a headlock. And he showed me what to do at that point. But no, it was more the spirit of the things. Like I would ask him, I would say, what's more important, strength or speed? And he would say, accuracy. And I asked him once, I said, man, if you really had to distill the secret of violence that you would want to convey to a young man who is trying to understand it, what really, if you just stripped all the other bullshit away, what do I need to know? And he said, it's the other guy's job to get hurt. Said a lot of things like that. Like old age and cunning will beat youth and bravado anytime. He's the kind of person who would explain to you that it would be best if you ever had to use your firearm in self-defense to scream help, 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 help with each shot you fired. Yeah, probably a lot of things like that I shouldn't go into. Yeah, how did I meet him is a question. I was very much into magic and esotericism and that sort of thing when I was younger. And before I met him, I had a group of friends and we were all into chaos magic. You know, when I was 16, I started getting very much into like Crowley and the Golden Dawn and all that kind of stuff. And some friends of mine then, you know, found out about chaos magic. We're all fucking teenagers, you know, and we decided that we wanted to put together a little secret society so we could all share our knowledge about these secret things like alchemy and tarot cards and ceremonial magic. And so we were all, if you check out the stream I did with Martin Lichtmetz, I talked about Lichtmetz. I talked a bit about being into Coil and Current 93 and Nurse with Wound and the Swans and Psychic TV and bands like that. That was that period when I'm like into chaos magic and listening to Current 93. And so we put together these little brochures and we like talked about how we were a group of people who were going to try to figure out these secrets and how they could get in touch with us through a post office box or whatever. And so we put these pamphlets together, and being rabble-rousing little children, we stuck them into occult books at the bookstore without any permission from the bookstore owners. And we also went to the cool record shops and we opened the little Mylar sleeves for the 33, you know, albums, and the LPs or EPs or whatever the fuck you call vinyl, and we stuck the brochures in those things, and And I stuck one of those brochures into some books at a bookstore called the Sphinx, which was a occult bookstore. Remember, I'm 19, and I get this letter at the post office box with this little postcard in it that says, "I'm very interested in what you're talking about. Please feel free to call me." And it left a telephone number. And I called the telephone number, and it was a strange answering machine. This was back in the days when there were answering machines, and it said something like, I can't remember that. There were no area codes then. It was just a 7-digit telephone number, and he would never give the first 3 digits, because if anybody called him, he didn't want them to know what his telephone number was, and he didn't want to say who he was. So whenever you called his answering machine message, it would say, "You have reached 2549," or some number like that. And so I left a message, and then I got a call back, and he started talking to me about different esoteric stuff, and it was immediately apparent that he knew a whole lot more about each one of these things that I tried to bring up than I did. And so I kept trying to change to a different subject when it became apparent that he knew more than me, and each subject I tried to change it to, he knew more than I did about it. And so we talked on the phone for an hour or something, and he said, "Well, it'd be interesting to meet. Let's meet." And I found a restaurant that was near my house I could walk over to. And I remember he said, "I will sit at the bar. I will be wearing a black t-shirt. I will have a gold finger on the something finger of my, a gold ring on the something finger of my left hand." I can't remember which finger it was. Pinky, I think he said. And he said, "I will be wearing a necklace of teeth." Only the people who knew him the longest would know about the necklace of teeth. Yeah, I went down and met him, and boy, that was a trip. And then we would just get together, and I would bring friends over, and we would all just talk with him and ask him crazy questions about shit. People would bring up different subjects. Like, he turned me on to the art of memory. He turned me on to all kinds of stuff with alchemy. Turned me on to Jung. The first 5 books that he recommended to everybody were The Master Game by Robert S. DeRopp, Origins and History of Consciousness by Eric Neumann, The Idea of the Holy by Rudolf Otto, The Phenomena of Man by Teilhard de Chardin, and The Sacred and the Profane by Mircea Eliade. And so at 19, he's throwing out those 5 books for me to start reading in order. And he threw The Golden Game by Derolla. He threw the Art of Memory, as I mentioned. Lots of stuff like that. Endless stuff like that. And so, yeah, it was a trip. I see 99 Iron Duke says kind of like a father figure in a way. No, actually, because I had a father. He died as well, also as a result of going to the hospital. Never go to the fucking hospital; they'll kill you. But no, it was much more like a mentor. Tim has, well, I guess you could say he had, because the son is still around, though Tim isn't. Tim had a son, has a son, and I had a father. And, it wasn't like my father was gone. So, no, it was much more like a mentor. It was like, it's a very strange thing when a young man can talk to an older one about all the kind of things that a young man would ask an older one about. But that older one is one with thorough and extensive knowledge of violence, ranging all the way from bounty hunting and bar fighting and like street type violence to military situations and special operations. But then that same person is talking to you about, Jung and Freud and the art of memory. I mean, there's a joke that used to go around where one time he was talking about Ovid and the Metamorphoses. And he was talking about it, and then he paused and he looked at me and he said, you have read Ovid, haven't you, Oliver? And of course, I fucking hadn't read Ovid. So that was a joke for quite some time. Yeah. Yeah. So what else am I forgetting? Ask questions, and I'll try to answer them. Thanks to everyone talking about the condolences, but I guess he's the one who died. Yeah, and I haven't felt him since. I always wondered if something would come rolling back through, and thus far, nothing. Nothing. But he used to talk about an interesting set of stages that I won't go into deeply, but it was a sequence. It went caecos, followed by indagator, followed by cogitor or cognitor, followed by sapiens, followed by progressio, he who goes forth. So yeah, I think you could describe Tim as he who has gone forth. Tim died, somebody's asking in the chat, when did he die? He died, let me go over to the damn calendar. Oh, wow, I better unshare this. Stop, how do I do this? Like that, okay. He died, as I understand it, I might be off by a day or so, maybe his wife was flustered, or I was flustered when she was telling me about it, so... but I believe on Saturday in the afternoon on the 27th, but I am not positive. The pirate asked, did he leave a letter or last message? No, I've got a box downstairs of 11 years of correspondence. Brian Silly says, Tim was the first person I ever saw draw a weapon in a non-sporting situation. Yeah. Man, he came to my apartment one time. And I was living in a cool kid part of town where all the punk rockers and hippies were, and living in this apartment complex, 19 years old, 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate, that teenager thing. And he used to come over, and I would always hear everybody who ever came over, you'd hear them coming down this metal walkway, because it was 2 stories. I was on the upper one, and the little, walkway outside area was steel with a railing and everything. And you could just hear people because steel made noise. And you know what? The door, there was always a little knock at the door, and I never heard him coming. And yeah, I noticed one day he seemed to pay attention to me more after that. I looked at him, and I looked at his sneakers, and I noticed that only the balls of his feet on his soles had any wear. There was no wear on the heels. And then I thought, maybe that has something to do with why he was so quiet. But yeah, he came in one time. He was talking to me alone, and it was before he was going to go help a friend of his out who had a real estate set up. And he would come over and talk with me for a bit, and then he would split to go watch this property that had been vandalized many times. And when he was going to go do that, he had a 44 that he wore in a shoulder holster, among other things. And I remember the wind blew the door, and it went bang. The outer door, like the screen door, bang. And just like fastest thing I had ever seen, he had drawn the pistol about halfway and was looking towards the door, and had just kind of just put it back after he realized nothing was happening. But it was a very strange thing to see how quickly people move when they don't have inbuilt things to retard their reactions. It's very much a trip. Let me see here. Looks like Brian is saying on one of the first occasions I met Tim, he pulled his firearm and went into the parking lot of the shithole apartment complex we lived in and diffused the situation in the parking lot. Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like Tim. I remember I was at his house one time and there was some noise outside and he thought for a second that my car was getting broken into. So out of nowhere, he just reaches around something and takes out this SKS and goes walking towards his front porch. And I said, what's going on? And he said, well, it looks like somebody's about to fuck with your car. And I said, what? And then he looked out and he said, oh, no, there's nothing going on with that. And he went and sat down again. And I was like, what the hell were you going to do? They were going to be driving off. He's like, put a few through the back windshield. Yeah. Yeah. Shadowfire says, what are some of his other teachings that really impacted you? Impacted. Oh, it's not as bad as morph. Affected. Made an impression on me. It's endless. I mean, you could say it goes down to old sayings from the South. Like you'd say something like, a willful waste is a woeful want. Or he'd be like, that's like sandpaper in a wildcat's asshole in a closed telephone booth. Or he'd say, happier than a dead pig in the sunshine in a field of shit. And it was only years later I saw that if you look at a pig corpse, the way the skin draws back on it, it makes a smile. See, that's the weird thing. You'd have these sayings and they wouldn't make any sense. You know, you talk about floaters and how people for fun would shoot the bodies floating in the river in Southeast Asia, and all the gas expanding would have them blowing down the water like a balloon. Like they're not just sayings, they're things that would sit there behind the scenes for quite some time, and then you would, you'd suddenly realize, wow, there's a whole other dimension of this. As a matter of fact, there was one with the Johnny Cash song about the last gunfighter. Something about standing in the street at the turn of the joke. I think it was in the last conversation I had with him. I said, damn, man, I get it. It's not that the turn of the joke is about what you would think it is, where somebody made a joke and it got taken the wrong way and it wasn't a joke anymore. It's that you becoming the killer reveals to you how thoroughly all of it is a joke. It's that kind of thing, those kind of little sayings that were rather odd. And then just endless stuff like the art of memory. All his stuff where he was appearing, except in the very first, I don't know, dozen or so of the Chainsmoke episodes, or maybe 24, he was still older and more tired. But definitely after the strokes, I'd ask him about it. He would say, there are some parts of myself I don't have access to anymore, simply because of what had gone on neurologically. But it's very difficult to convey to anybody who didn't know him then, like Brian knew him then. It's just impossible to kind of communicate how much shit he knew about. I mean, I remember once he just went off on a thing about how he was going to learn about Persian culture, and he literally ordered like 50 or 60, I'm not kidding, 50 or 60 titles, and threw them all up on the shelf and just went through them one by one, and read all of them. Now, I mean, there's a lot he forgot about, and like I'd get on his case because he'd misquote parts of Shakespeare that he had memorized, except now I memorized Shakespeare when I was younger and I'll quote it, except it's a misquote now. I didn't understand. When you're young, you don't understand how much shit gets put up in here, and how the card catalog system, for those of you who remember such things, can become it can become a bit disorganized at times. So yeah, I can't even remember what the original question was. Yeah, favorite sayings and things that he taught me about. Man, with women, he gave me excellent advice. Although sometimes it was just fucking obnoxious, man. Because I called him up all fucked up, all wrecked because of some woman I was deeply in love with and it wasn't working out. And I was like, I'm going to have to flee back to the United States. And he just laid that line from Roadhouse on me, you know, where the guy gets fucked up and falls down at the bar and the older bouncer character looks at him and goes, hurts, doesn't it? He's like, hurts, doesn't it? I'm like, fuck you, god damn. Yeah. What's another one like that? Where I explained, this was at another time, it was early 20s, and I was talking about how, well, things had kind of gone south with the woman, but I had some hope because, you know, she was still talking to me, and he looked at me and he went, every girl wants a friend who owns a truck. You know, which is just basically saying that I'm being kept around to help run errands. You know, so sometimes it was not gentle, but it was definitely what you needed to hear. Yeah, low ears. Yeah, low ears. Yeah, I showed him a picture of a girl I was into one time, and he went, low ears. And I have looked since. I'm like, those ears were a little low. Yeah. If I had more old friends around who knew him, it would bring up many more things. But he basically was fucking helping everybody out, man. The number of friends I have for whom he basically showed up is almost as like, you're such a fucking basket case. You're so fucked up. You're all over the ground that somebody needs to show up with one of those big, wide, flat shovels they use for shoveling snow, just to scrape your shit up off the road. You know, he'd just show up for me and different people I knew and scrape our asses up off the road and sort of put us back together again, over and over again. And I remember early on, there were people like that where I'd be like, can you get together this weekend? That's when these people were still alive. And he would be like, no, this week I got to go and see Sergeant so-and-so's kid. He asked me to keep an eye on him. And he's not all together. He's not quite right. So I'm going to go try and stitch him together again here for a while so he doesn't break loose. Yeah, he did it. He did a lot for a lot of my friends. And I was talking to another friend of mine. I'm not going to name him because he's not here and I don't want to do it without his permission. But I was talking to him and I'm like, damn, man, I'm just glad that people knew him, because if I tried to tell people who hadn't met him back in the day, they'd literally think I'm a liar. Crazy. Just crazy. I remember one time I was going to the bookstore with him, because we'd go up to the bookstore together, and I'd go off one direction, he'd go off another, and we'd just buy a bunch of shit, you know, drive off in our separate cars. I mean, that shit was fun back in the day. People today with Amazon don't understand the pleasure of going to bookstores like as it was once upon a time, because you'd find it. You didn't search for it. You came across it. You browse, so to speak, but not with a fucking screen. Anyway, and we were walking across this parking lot. It was at night, and I heard this voice say, Tim? And man, it was the strangest thing. I had this whole vibe from him, which was like, get away from me. I only thought about it later, but some vibe was coming off of him, and it was like, get away. So I stepped like, you know, I don't know, I ended up 6-7 feet back. And as I watched him, he got this weird smile on his face. And he just kind of scanned this way, kept his hands down, kind of scanned that way along the parking lot, smiling. And then it emerged that it was this cop who knew him back in the running titty bars and driving out biker gangs days. and it was a cop who knew him. I asked him about it afterwards. I was like, "What was up with that expression?" He's like, "Just put a neutral expression on your face if you don't know what's coming." Yeah. He was getting ready to throw down from the old days because somebody had recognized him in a parking lot, is what it looked like to me. But yeah. Yep. People who didn't know him back in the day, I'm sure to the vast majority of people I'm speaking to now, they'd be like, whatever. What the fuck ever, man. That old man? Yeah. That's why the people who knew him are additionally precious to me because they knew him too. And they know I'm not lying. That shit was a trip. That dude was for real. Mr. Happy Traveler. Brian, I won't share the name of the person who had that story, but I do hope one day to be able to talk about it. Hopefully I can put together something where there were some people who knew him, who I was hoping we could all get together and just share stories, because these are just the ones I know. Like, I never heard the story Brian was talking about, and we all have our separate ones. Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. So what do you do, Tim, if somebody's got you around the neck and they're trying to choke you out? He's like, find a corner. Find a corner. Yeah. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, I'm a good old rebel is another one he used to sing. Although he used to have a real problem with the South. He said if he had to do it over again, he'd fight again. But he was always pissed off about Fort Sumter. He always felt that they were all idiots for firing on Fort Sumter. And that they destroyed all their chances and their position and everything else when they did so. I'd be inclined to give that some thought, to give that consideration its due. So yeah, what other questions, peoples? We'll see how long I have these memories in me, and what I can talk about. Yeah, I was thinking about doing a montage of some stuff with Tim. There's just so much of the damn. There's a lot of those videos. Yeah, for people who are just coming in, I'm gonna put together probably a channel, and it'll probably be Odyssey, to make sure that all the clips I did with him are available, because they're not on YouTube anymore. Probably 70% of them are on, or 60 or 70% of them are up on BitChute. Probably 60-ish% of them are up on Odyssey. And I'll put all the rest of them up to make sure they're all there. And as I told some people earlier on in this stream, there's one that I never edited and put up, because we were having an argument about Jews and circumcision. I thought it was just dumb, but now it's just one other record, you know. One other record. Yeah. So, any other questions? Was he a U.S. Army Ranger? No, he was in the Army, but it wasn't Ranger. But he did talk about jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. He'd always talk about that. And I'm not really sure where my different sayings come from. I think from my brother being in the Army, that's probably when I started saying shitbird. But no, other things like fucking new guy and that kind of stuff I got from Tim. Yeah, somebody's talking about him having a deep voice. Man, you have no idea. His voice was way deeper. It was heavier before he started getting old. Seriously, it was deeper and a trip. Boyle says even Rocky had a montage. Do it, man. There could be a montage. That might be cool. That's a lot of stuff to have to go through, though. No, he wasn't a Navy SEAL. All he did was make fun of SEALs. All he did was make fun of the fucking Marines and the Navy, and yeah, he had no interest in all of them. All he did was make fun of all of them. Like he used to tell the joke about how the guys from the different branches are all standing there taking a piss, and then the Army guy, the Navy guy finishes first or something, and like goes to wash his hands, and the Army guys zips up his fly and goes to go out the door, and the Navy guy says, in the Navy they taught us to wash our hands, and the Army guy says, in the Army they told us not to piss on them. Yeah, he had the full set of jokes about the other branches in the military. He was not in the Navy, not at all. Yeah, Zed's talking about some of his, hello by the way, Zed, the bounty hunter tricks. Yeah, one of them was when you're chasing somebody, look past them as though you're going after someone else. Never look at them. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in those clips. I just haven't looked at them because I did the discussion, and then for the vast majority of them, they were not they weren't live streamed. So I actually watched the I watched them a second time or 3 more times in the process of editing. So I'd seen so many of them so many times that I haven't gone back to look back through them. So yeah. Yeah, that would be funny actually. Tim violating the YouTube terms of service. Yeah, that was yeah. There was quite a bit of that. Constant. Yeah, I like the old New Orleans style where you throw a party. That would be most appropriate. Except he never fucking drank. I saw him drink one time. That was the funniest thing. There were so many people who would come and talk in the chat when we were doing a live stream, and they say he's drunk or he seems drunk because of his liver problems, which he put down to Agent Orange. He never drank, ever. I saw him drink one time, and it was literally like 1/4 of a shot glass because he had some kind of special wine that some farmers near him had made. And I remember he drank like about a thimbleful of it in front of me. And in 31 years, that's all the alcohol I ever saw him drink. And there's so many good stories, man. There was the Speller, the bounty hunter, and the strip club. The titty bar stories were great, man. Oh my God. Because he managed a bunch of strip clubs. And he talked about one. Talk about how the T-backs would get up and walk around on their own, go back in the dressing room with the girls, and how he saw 2 girls, because one of them was a hardcore lesbian and was like fooling around with this other girl in the back, and he threw a bucket of water on them. He's all talking about how they were like dogs when the one dog's mounted the back of the other one and his dick gets stuck, and you throw a bucket of water on them to separate them. So we went back in the women's, in the dressing room for the women, and just dumped a bucket of water all over these 2 girls. God, I wish I could remember the names of the women, because as good as the stories were about the people who came in and tried to be violent, there are tons of stories about the strippers who were actually the smart ones, who were kind of funny. I can't remember what her name was, but there was one who was really cute and always ended up like being more clever than the men who were trying to move on her and stuff. She had a t-shirt. That's right. She had a t-shirt, and it said, if you have any children listening, stop now. Mute. Here we go. Her t-shirt said, beat me, fuck me, come between my tits, and throw me out like the no good bitch you know I am. He seemed to have a soft spot in his heart for that woman. The big story from the strip clubs was that one of the dancers was going down on a guy, and the guy started trying to grab her head physically, and she looked up at him and said, do you want to do this? There's so many good stories like that. What else? What else? He had to throw Andre the Giant out of his bar one time. He had to throw the Outlaw Bikers out one time. And there was a guy named the Speller, called the Speller. The Speller. He would come in and he would say things like C-A-T. C-A-T spells cat. And then he would pull out a pistol and shoot your ass. And he told a story once about that dude coming in, and someone came over all scared and said, Tim, man, this dude, he's trouble. He's killed a bunch of people, man, and he's trouble. And that's when Tim told me about you place the 45 against the, what did he say? He said some shit like Tim would say. He'd say like against the mastoid process. And he said, you'd be surprised. They can feel the safety drop. Yeah. Yep. That dude, man. And what's crazy is all the stories about the violence and all the rest, he was bored shitless with it. He did not care. He did not want to talk about all that stuff. He wasn't interested anymore. He mainly talked about it for me because I was interested. I wanted to hear the stories, you know. Had Chuck Norris in there one time in his bar. I was like, Chuck Norris, man, could he really fight? He's like, actually, yes. Chuck Norris would fuck you up. Who's got a fucking Chuck Norris story? Who threw Andre the Giant out of a strip club? And he told me he met Hoyt Axton one time, and he just walked over very kindly, and he said, I've enjoyed your music very much, sir. Thank you. And then like walked off quietly. And I know that's exactly how he did, because one time he called me up and he's like, hey, Oliver, there's going to be a get together, and these famous witchcraft people, Janet and Stuart Farrar, are going to be showing up at this bookstore to do a book signing. And who else was there? Isaac Bonowitz, this guy who had like managed to get some university in California to give him a degree in magic. He'd like put together his own program and did it. And yeah, Bonowitz was there, and there was also the guy who published Green Egg magazine. And I remember I went in there, and Stuart Farrar was like this old, bent, like white bearded, you know, old man, and Janet Farrar was much younger, and of course I was like 20 years old, and I was in full like coxman mode. I was like, that's when I was young, and that's back in the days when women used to chase me. And fight over each other for me. So Janet Farrar was all looking at me and getting all big-eyed. She must have been like 45 or something at the time, 50, I don't remember. Her husband looked like he was 70. She was all making big eyes at me. But I remember Tim did the same thing. He walked over to Isaac Bonowitz and he said, it's a pleasure to see your work. I enjoyed your several books. Congratulations on convincing a school to give you a degree in magic. And I imagine it must have been the same thing with Hoyt Axton, because it was strange. They were just like, oh yeah, thanks. Everybody, it was strange, and he would just very politely go off after he had said his thing. It was a trip. I'm going to get a little bit more of my apple juice. I figure we can let this run another 30 minutes. We'll make it 2 hours neat, and yeah, I will be back in mere moments. I mean, literally 10 seconds. How do I mute this damn thing? So, yeah, Bony Fingers. He liked that Bony Fingers song. Then he was listening to all kinds of stuff that I wasn't into. Like, I mean, hardcore boomer stuff, like his talking about fucking Linda Ronstadt and shit. Or Dr. Hook, man. He's always talking about Dr. Hook, and I'm like, God help me, no, thank you. No fucking thank you. But man, lots of good songs. So, other questions? What other questions? Cam says I got my apple juice. Apple juice is good for all. Grimes is asking about his hospital. I can't remember what that thing was called. I want to say Turkey something. I can't remember. It's Turkey something in Tennessee. I don't remember. And what's he gonna do? I mean, there's no way to go and do. There's no way to go and like, you know, sue him for anything. I already told his wife. 'Cause same thing happened to me with my dad. They're like, oh well, you know, he just passed away due to complications or whatever. And then I found out later when I got out there, one of his caretakers from his house said that she had gone to the hospital to see how he was doing and heard the nurses in the little nurse station talking about how they found him dead on the floor. And I'm like, he's paralyzed in bed. What's he doing dead on the fucking floor? And yeah, they'll lie their asses off. Anyway, yeah, so I ended up cremating my father and then found out about that and then found out there's nothing I could do because I don't have the body anymore. And anyway, they're too fucking powerful now. Same thing with Tim. There's nothing you're going to be able to... Yeah, oh, Ollie, you don't mean that. Yeah. Golly, Ollie. Yeah. The hospitals... Once upon a time, maybe they were not as bad. But now... the hospitals are absolutely, they've been let slip from their leashes. They are, they're fucked up. And the power they have and the way in which they're related to the government and the money, what are you going to do with them? Nothing. So, yeah. Other question, John Ski. No, I disavow John Ski. Do not do anything to anybody or any kind of hospitals or anything. That's a good question. Confusion and Delay said, could Tim play any instrument? Was he known to sing? No, he could not play an instrument. No, I never heard him sing, but he could whistle. And the pitch was like perfect. He whistled perfectly. Just whistling though. Yeah. He could whistle Dixie. Yep. Clickety clack, and you ain't coming back. All right, Ski, delete that comment, please, or I'm gonna have to go find out how to delete it. Don't put that on me, man. Don't put that kind of stuff on me. Where is that? I'm gonna go find it in here. There. Yeah. Don't do me like that, friend. Don't put any kind of incitement in here. So what else? Sophie Scholl, what kind of channel is this? If you're just showing up now, yeah, there's no explaining it for you. Sorry. This this memorial stream is an inside joke, ladies and gentlemen. Man, right? Nope. If you ain't drinking, don't drink. So, what other good questions? I mentioned that his wife specifically wanted me to thank Lital. Let me think if there's anything else specifically. Yeah, he literally didn't give a fuck over these last 3 years about anything. Thomas Payne says, Ollie, how do you reconcile where we are, where Tim saw us going, and how you see your role as the elders man going forward? Don't put that on me yet, man. Not all of my hair is white. The last times I talked to Tim, he just didn't give a fuck about any of it. He just kept saying things like, Ollie, these motherfuckers bore the shit out of me. So, yeah. Satali says, Semigog, do you give a fuck? Let me see if I can reach inside myself. There's just no way I can deliver it the same way, because there are still aspects that I give a fuck about. I do not have his total desynchronization. Man Ray of Hope says, just one. Oh, I'm just going to have one drink here. Only one. Oh, I've got a fly in here. Spit it out, you bastard. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I will be on Millennial this year. And yeah, definitely check out Millennial Woes. Millennial is happening this year. There are going to be a bunch of great people as usual. There's also a bunch of people from Colin the Custard Creams crew, aka Academic Agent. Fucking Milo Yiannopoulos is going to be on Millennial this year. And that's going to be fun to watch. Can you imagine watching Woes and Milo Yiannopoulos? Can't wait to see that conversation. John D is going to be on Millennial this year. But anyway, I'm going to keep this one focused on Tim. Yeah, I have one non-gray. Oops. I have one non-gray eyebrow left. I do. And my body hair is not all white, goddammit. Too much information. No, you know what's a trip about Christian SN says quite normal for old people not to give a fuck anymore. Their time is over soon anyway. Tim told me as early as probably when he was in his mid-40s. So after I'd known him 5-6 years or something, he told me he was either going to live to 120 or that he was going to die from a series of massive strokes. He told me that specifically. And I'm convinced a number of his problems came down to his stroke. That's an interesting question. Dark Glasses Woody said, did Tim have an esoteric explanation for the phenomenon of evil? I don't know if it was esoteric. But you could say that he viewed such things, I could say, and now you're getting it through me, which is at one remove, so it's like playing telephone. I could have it all fucked up, but my impression was that he saw the development of the soul and of the individual person as a thing that took place over a series of incarnations, and that it was generally the result of misunderstanding and projection, but not just psychological projection. Think of it as projection meets Henri Corbin's idea of the mundus imaginalis. So what we would call evil basically amounted to partial misunderstandings, which is to say partial understandings, which would eventually be made right again through something like the operation of karma, which would necessitate that those who had been on one side of the misunderstanding, let's say, to make it like simple, like cartoony comic book, the murderer, would then eventually have to be the murdered, and would have to at some point recognize God's light shining in the eyes of both the killer and the victim. Yeah, probably. I'm not going to go down this road when I'm drinking. The more important stuff I don't want to fuck up as a result of not having thought it through properly and to be drinking. And it doesn't in any way suggest that Tim was saying that God is a murderer or anything like that. It had more to do with the idea that God's grace is such that in order for us to complete our understandings, to make of them apprehensions that become comprehensions within the realm of free will. God permits it in creation so that we may come to more complete understandings as is required by our peculiar combinations of need and free will. But again, I'm going to stop that there. Okay. Travis Blaze, hello. It's good seeing people who used to watch all the old Tim clips, man. Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a montage right away, but there's definitely going to be me putting all his clips up, all the ones that I have, all of them, to Tim. Yeah, he would not be pleased. He didn't drink and didn't have any time for such nonsense. Is this a Nazi channel or not? No, it's not a Nazi channel, Anna. Why are you here asking if this is a Nazi channel? Please go somewhere else. Anyone who says that should go somewhere else. Consider that an option for you, to go somewhere else. Okay. Is there more of this Anna Borrance nonsense? Let me just check and see if there's more of it. Because I'll just shut it down. Or is this the last one? All right. If somebody just wants to ask a stupid question once, they're welcome. Okay, so who else is here? 99 Iron Duke, Man Ray of Hope. Minoan. John Goris. Ugh. Who else? Don Browning. Field Marshal Don Browning. Good to see you. Zed. Men Like Gods. Noah Solomon in the house. Good to see you, sir. A man who recommends excellent books. John Ski says, Semiagog, was Tim a Christian? He had read the Bible in various translations several times, many times. He read the damn Book of Mormon. He read everything. No, Tim was not a Christian. However, Tim took Yesu, who was anointed the Christos, very, very seriously, and his teachings as well. But and Christians will not be pleased with this, but Tim saw Christ as having confronted a final and fundamental misunderstanding, which absolutely sounds preposterous, I'll grant you, certainly from the Christian perspective, but he made a good case regarding it. And he, in particular, seemed to hinge on the idea that, yeah, here I am drinking, talking about these heavy things. I won't go into that. No, Tim was not a Christian, but he took Christianity and the Christos very seriously, and saw both Christianity as a set of traditions and the Christ as a person as having a great deal to teach us. Someone's calling me Tim. I think some of the commenters are tripping on the symbols designs on your Turkish rug. That is not a Turkish rug. That is a Suzani. That's an embroidery, not a rug. And my name is not Tim. Okay. Yeah, Tim had one child, a son. That's a question from Dawn Browning. Actually, that would be cool. Make a montage video of Tim trolling me. Yes. Yeah, there's quite a bit of that. There was quite a bit of that. I deserved it. Yeah, Palooka in the house. Palooka 82. Yeah, man, it's a trip seeing all these people who who've been around a long ass time watching these videos. CJ says, was he a part of Mensa? Tim laughed at Mensa and said it was all people with low IQs. I told him my IQ, which was very high, and he laughed at me. He literally laughed at me. The only time he laughed at me worse was once when I think I was 19 or 20, and he had just started coming around and talking to me and my group of friends. And I said something like, yeah, you're pretty bold to be going up into all these strangers' houses. I mean, something could happen. And I wasn't saying it threateningly. It was just an observation. I thought it was being all friendly and everything. And he literally looked at me and he went, like that bad, like laughed at me like that and said, what could you do to me? Yeah. He was pretty hardcore when I first met him. He mellowed quite a bit with age. What else? Now someone's saying, so why do you censor questions? I didn't censor anything. No one's had their questions censored. What the fuck ever. Thomas Payne says, where in timeline as a historical power did Tim see us in? I guess you're talking about the United States. I don't know, man. I remember literally in 1991, I remember him saying, specifically in 91, he said that there's going to be a long period of this whole liberal kind of thing, and that an enormous backlash would come and people would be singing the fucking Horst Wessel Lied and, you know, Der Banner Flauten and all this kind of shit. Like, he said an enormous reaction was coming and that it would take some time. And on his scale of time, the years between then and now is nothing in particular. Prism says, Semigog, did Tim have a favorite poem? No, I know that he was getting into Baudelaire there for a while. He wasn't much for poetry. He got poetry. His favorite poem was probably the Charles McIntosh translation of the Tao. But there is one he gave me. Let me see if I can find it. He went to the trouble of actually writing it down and even dating it. Hang on, let me see if I can find this. We'll see. Ah, it is here. Excellent. Oh, it's not dated though. But it can't be. This can't be later than 1993. Yeah, he wrote it down. How steep is Yumen's mountain? How low the white clouds hang. The mountain stream rushes so swiftly, the fish cannot venture to stay. One's coming is so well understood. Why should I speak of the dust on the track that is worn by the wheel? Yeah. I still keep that in the copy of the Macintosh translation of the Tao that he gave me. When he first gave this to me, he came over to my apartment and he said, are you familiar with the Tao? And I said, yeah, my dad was way into it. He was into the I Ching. He was into the Tao. He was always, you know, the Wilhelm and Bain's translation of the I Ching. He just was constantly, I told him that my dad, instead of throwing yarrow stalks, would throw dice in order to figure out the trigrams and hexagrams, and my dad would sit there and just twist this forelock of his at his desk as he threw dice and scribbled down hexagrams trying to figure out shit with the I Ching. And he said, that's all interesting, Oliver, but have you read the Tao? And I said, yeah, in some translation or another. And he said, read this. And he handed me this book, this one here. And And I said, great. And I set it beside me, and I'll take a look at it. Thank you. And he said, no, read it now. And he just sat across from me smoking Benson and Hedges Ultralight 100s in my little teenager apartment while I read this thing from front cover to the back. And then I looked up after I finished it, because it's not that long. You can read it in one sitting without much time spent. Yeah. But there's a poem that Tim dug. So there's an answer for you, Prism. Speaking of people who've been around since early days. I love this. I'm seeing old people who'd come in on the Tim streams. H Crime says, I miss his comments about the monkeys having no tails. Oh, the monkeys have no tails in Zembawanga. Okay. I'm done with this crap about, is this a Nazi channel? No, it's not a Nazi channel. Let me go over here and find that. Let me make that go away. Whoever it is who's asking this fucking nonsense question about if it's a Nazi channel, well, I don't want to go looking for it right now while I'm talking to everyone, but one of the mods, just throw the person out. All right. John Ski said, is Tim being buried or cremated? He's already been cremated. He asked his wife to dump the ashes in the compost heap. And last I heard, she had not yet done it. But she was thinking about it, because that was his last wish. He literally wanted to be dumped in the compost heap. So what's next? Mr. Ixme is in the house. Hello, old friend. Yeah, Tim died a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I found out about a week and a half ago and just wanted to swallow it. So yeah, thank you for the kind words, and thanks for dropping in. So what else do we have here? Haiku Bandits in the house. Old school. Who else? What else? Ash said, Semiagog, what did Tim like about Conan the Barbarian? Tim had probably read some of the original Howard stories, but he was way too serious a person to care at all about that. That's where I would start making Conan noises or joke about it, and he would just tolerate it. He had no interest in such things. None. I remember I really pushed him to read one Michael Moorcock story, and he was like, why did you waste my fucking time with this nonsense? He had no interest. Somebody with what looks like one Japanese character and then numbers and other things said Tim ever occasionally smoked a cigar. He used to smoke a lot of cigars, and he inhaled them fully. Yeah. Semiagog does not cry, so I cry for him.
Fire does not burn up there. No fire at all. They bred him to the finest stock. Ah!
Crom. Sorry. And Dora Darling says, yes, if people say they have high IQs, it means they're insecure, like guys talking about their trucks and penis size. Yeah, but I actually have a really high IQ. I don't talk about it, though. Last time I tried, John D. made fun of me and rightfully shamed me. All right. Mr. Ixme says, obnoxious, disrespectful jackasses get censored. Simple. All right. This is so funny that lots of people who weren't here for the Tim material are in here being like, what the fuck is going on? All right. Yeah, Waterpenny. Hello, Miss Lady. I forgot about musicals. See, I could never connect with him on that. And I know you always love that stuff, man. Camelot. Actually, I did connect. On My Fair Lady, that movie is brilliant. And he's the one who turned me on to that. Let a woman in your life. Bum, 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 and your sabbatical is through. She'll have a large Wagnerian mother who something. Talk about what the matter is with you. I can't remember all of it, but yes. Never let a woman in your life. Yeah, he did like those. He did. He liked Cabaret quite a bit. Tomorrow Belongs to Me. Camelot. Yeah. He also turned me on to The Magic Christian. Fucking Yul Brynner in a wig. I'm not sure if I can ever fully recover from the sight of that. Yeah. If you want it, come on and get it. But you better hurry, it's going fast. Yeah. He did like musicals. Yeah. I don't even know what was going on with all of that. So what else? What else do we have for questions? What else? Fiend J in the house. Hello, sir, from the icy north. The Hyperborean in the house. Yes, indeed. May he rest in peace, or go forth, as is fitting. Still seems right to raise a mound to him. You know, certain men, they should have a mound raised. Azimuth Clark says, I'd love to see Tim's library. Most of it is in boxes, but I'd say a good quarter of it is in boxes in my basement. Previously in another friend of mine's garage for many years. And the books have never been taken out of those damn boxes since shortly after he went to jail. So 97? So what's that? 97 to 2007, 2017. So more than 20 years. Getting close to 25 years they've been in boxes. If I get up into the woods, I will take them out again. Sorry. I am looking for Storm of Steel. Kind words. Thank you. I'm just trying to catch up down here to the bottom, see if we have any other questions. Swamp Fox. Yes. Tim died. Never and forever are neither for men. Jesse J in the house. Jesse J has Warren Zevon playing. I always hated Warren Zevon, but Tim did seem to like him. Right on, man. Thank you very much. Thank you. It means so much. But seriously, thanks, man. And thanks for dropping in. 99 Iron Duke says the mods are banning the troll who keeps coming back. Good. Okay. Nothing personal, but anybody who shows up with the name Kike Striker 1488 with a fucking swastika can fuck off. Okay. Tweety Pie, kind words, and thank you. I've seen you around for quite some time. Yeah, Brian M. Is Tim the older gentleman that called you Ollie? Yes. And I always love it when other people called me Ollie, because there's only one person in my life who ever called me that. There are some who call me Tim, yes. Yeah, I did. Koojsta, 69, another one who has been around since back in the day. Please, Ollie, make a montage of Tim's laughter and the countless times he was beeped out on streams. Yeah, I did that a few times. Most of those streams where where I had to beep him out. It was pretty bad for YouTube standards. And remember, I was beeping him out in like 2018 and 2019 before it got bad. And still, he was he was pretty hardcore. However, all of those old clips are going to go up on Odyssey. I don't know that I can commit to going to all the trouble of going out back and unbleeping him, but in most cases, you can figure out what he's saying. Ashen Duke asks for predictions for 2022. Crow pie in the oven. No, ask me once I'm out of the city. Hopefully within the next month and a half, I will be out of here. Hopefully within the next 2 weeks, I'll know that my house is sold. And then I will be relocated. Wait, what's this? Brian Salee? He could quote Destroyer novels? What Destroyer novels? Could he? Fuck, I didn't know that. Tell me more. Man Ray of Hope, yes. Tim definitely read Lovecraft. I'm sure he read all of it. What else? Sorry, just rolling through here. Elric is not a good choice. Yeah. Looking back on Elric, I loved that shit. Read all of it, as you know, guy from V. But it's a little degenerate. It's a little leftist 1960s. I can now see that... let me look here. Shadowfire0001 is asking what his top 10 books were. Actually, a good friend of mine who knew him asked Tim to give, I think it was his top 100 books of all time. That what would Tim recommend for those? And Tim actually sent a list. And... I think I have it. Let me just look. I'll read a few of them off of it. This was from years and years and years and years ago after Tim died over the last week. I talked to some of his old friends and mine, and one of them sent me this list of like the top, there it is, Tim's suggested reading list. Bhagavad Gita, specified a translation. Tao Te Ching, specified a translation. Tibetan Book of the Dead, specified a translation. Art of War, the Quran, Indian Statecraft, which is, you know, that's before there was a full translation of Chandragupta. The I Ching, Analects of Confucius, Secrets of the Golden Flower, Moral Man and Immoral Society, The Honey and the Lion, The Kingdom of God is Within You, specifying read the last chapter first. Tim always used to say that with some books. Leo Tolstoy. I remember he told me that about Origins and History of Consciousness by Neumann. He said read part 2 before part 1. Becoming Evil by James Waller. Phenomena of Man by Chardin. The Crowd by Gustave Le Bon. Obedience to Authority by Stanley Milgram. King Solomon's Ring by Conrad Lorenz. African Genesis by Ardrey and other titles by him, Alchemy and Psychology by Jung, Alchemical Studies by Jung, Mysterium Conjunctionis by Jung, Aurora Consurgens by von Franz, Golden Game by Derolla, Spiritual Body, Celestial Earth by Corbin, The Man of Light by Corbin, Rumi's Poetry, The Hero with the Thousand Faces by Campbell, Comparative Mythology by Eliade. He recommended the works of Dumézil, Nietzsche's Thus Spake Zarathustra, which I just don't understand because out of all Nietzsche's books, the Zarathustra shit is annoying to me. Common Sense by Payne. Crime Control as Industry by Niels Christie. Some of these, he talked to different people about different things. Many of these I didn't hear about. So he tuned this list for the interests of the guy who was asking. Satyagraha by Gandhi. Nonviolent Social Change by Gene Sharp,
Art of Memory by Yeats, 12 Patriarchs and the Ark of the Covenant by Richard de St. Victor, The Cloud of Unknowing, anonymous, Nicholas of Cusa's various works, Ascent of Mount Carmel, Dark Night of the Soul by St. John of the Cross, The Interior Castle by Teresa of Avila, Gargantula by Rabelais, The Psychomachia by Prudentius, Plutarch's Moralia and the Lives of the Noble Greeks and Romans, Crito, Apologia, a lot of other stuff by Plato as well, City of God by St. Augustine, all of Shakespeare's works, The Divine Comedy by Dante, the Petrarch's Triumphs. He recommended the plays of Euripides, Sophocles, The 1001 Nights, commentary on the various wars by Kaiser. He specified the Loeb's edition, specified various works by Cicero, by Aristotle, Thomas More's Utopia, Civil Disobedience by Thoreau, various works of Ovid, Apuleius the Golden Ass, the Degrees are on Brotherhood by Al-Ghazali, various works by Ibn al-Arabi, particularly translations by Chittick, A Guide for the Perplexed by Maimonides, Kabbalah by Gershom Scholem, A History of the Devil by Russell, specified as 5 volumes, collected works of Sade, that being the Marquis de Sade, Voltaire, saying at least read Candide, but the other works as well. Recommended a number of works by Swedenborg, some works by St. Francis of Assisi, recommended The Romance of the Rose. That's 2 medieval authors. Pilgrim's Progress by Bunyan, Aesop's Fables, The Babrius and Phaedrus, recommended the Loeb's edition, recommended Siddhartha and Magister Ludi by Hesse, recommended Aldous Huxley and Julian Huxley, Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Skinner's Beyond Freedom and Dignity, go figure, Rousseau, Philosophical Works and Confessions, Twain, all of it, but specifically calling out War Prayer, Innocents Abroad, and Letters from the Earth, Kipling's Ballads and Barrack Room Ballads and Barrack Room Ballads, and collected works, Churchill's History of the English-Speaking Peoples. For some reason, he threw Sappho in there and recommended the Loeb series. Recommended C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity and the Screwtape Letters. Recommended Machiavelli, Swift, Gulliver's Travels, Modest Proposal. Cesare Bonacer Beccaria, On Crime and Punishments. Various from Spinoza, various from Aquinas, various from Erasmus. Recommended the Federalist Papers, Democracy in America by de Tocqueville. Seemed to recommend Toynbee, various stuff on history. Then Thomas Jefferson, various compilations of his writings and letters, as well as Jefferson's version of the Bible. Xenophon, Homer, Virgil. Recommended Panofsky's works on art criticism, particularly his work on iconography. Ideas Have Consequences, I think that's Weaver. Coleridge's poems, Walt Whitman's poems, Shelley's poems, Spencer's poems, Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, Conference of the Birds, and the rest. The Rose Garden of Said, the Khalila wa Dimna, Tales of the Jackal and the Fox, the Saxon Gospels, Snorri Sturluson's sagas, the Prose and Poetic Eddas, Mein Kampf by Hitler, various works by Marx and Engels, various works by Lenin, Adam Smith, including The Wealth of Nations, Peace is the Way by Walter Wink, Slavery and Social Death by Orlando Patterson, Prison Nation, The Warehousing of America's Poor, and works of Gene Sharp. Some of these I don't remember him mentioning to me. See, that's why I said it's important to get lots of other people on who dealt with him, because there's what I knew about him, but each of these other people, like I'd say 70% of those books he had recommended to me also. But 30% of them he never mentioned to me, and he tuned those recommendations for the person who asked. So, yeah. Now I'm well behind. Are we all taking a shot for Tim? Well, shit. We're past 2 hours already, so I'm just going to go a little bit longer. Why not? This, ladies and gentlemen, is apple juice. I do not recommend drinking in any way, shape, or form for anyone. But because this is as close as I'm going to get to some sort of group discussion of my dead friend, I'm going to have another beverage as long as I can maintain my front. And we'll go. So, yeah, to the other Brian, the Brian M., not the Brian Salee. Salee being an old friend of mine. Yes, I'm taking a shot for Tim of apple juice. And Dora Darling says, Semi-Gog Oliver, do you have other mentors? Were there other mentors you had since you were a teen? Was Tim the only one? Yeah, I had a couple who were... Tim was a little bit far out, so it was hard to call him a peer, whereas the other people were much older than me, so they knew many more things. However, they were more like peers. They weren't so far apart in their knowledge and experience. So yeah, there were a couple. Both of them are still alive. One of them I don't really talk to anymore, but he knew a whole lot about antique arms and armor, metalwork, weapons. He sort of mentored me in the whole process of collecting antiques, introduced that whole world to me, for which I am very grateful. And then another one, he's a friend of mine who's appeared on my channel several times, Gerard, who's an old friend of mine. More like a peer, but definitely a mentor in many ways. Gerard introduced me to many things about music, and specifically, he's the one who really introduced me to flamenco. My father played flamenco guitar, but I never really got into it. And then Gerard kind of dived into that world and said, hey, man, you got to check this shit out. And so I'm very grateful to him for that. So yeah, Tim was not the only mentor, but he was a very different one. Very different. I shall not look upon his like again. Prism asks, Tim told a few hilarious jokes on the Chainsmoke series. Is there one that sticks out to you? Well, Tim's jokes were always dangerous. He would set traps with those. We would all be sitting and talking, and he would make jokes in order to see who would laugh at them. And he used that as a way to illustrate that jokes are never jokes. You know, like you know, when there's like some sort of that I'm sorry, there's no way to do this other than to be vulgar about it, to illustrate the point. But you know how there'd be like some guy who'd be like, women, their pussy smells. You know that there's a problem there. And so depending on what kind of joke a person is telling, you can see where their issues are and what they have difficulty coming to grips with. And so Tim used to like tell jokes about like hemorrhoids being speed bumps for gay people. Like he'd tell all kinds of horrible jokes, but he would never laugh at them. He'd look around the room to see how people responded to them. So from very early on, I learned that Tim could be funny as hell, like really funny. But of course would never laugh about it. It was always deadpan delivery. But Tim's jokes, I learned very early on, never made me laugh. If you saw our dynamic when he was telling jokes, most of them I'd go like this. I'd be like, oh God, right? Because he was going back to his old way, and I knew that there was a knife in the pillow. Like there was a trick hidden in that. There's something else. When he told jokes, he was more interested in how people reacted to the specific joke he'd chosen to use as a litmus test. So yeah, there are plenty of times when he was funny as hell, but it was oblique, and it would just suddenly hit you from the side because it was always delivered deadpan. It was never presented as a joke. so unfortunately they don't come to me. Just thinking about, oh my God. All right, here we go. Sorry, I'm just seeing, why are people talking about Nazis on my dead friend stream? That's just what I want to know. If anybody sees anyone talking about fucking Nazis, any moderators, if anybody talks about fucking Nazis, please remove them from my stream. I am talking about my dead friend who had no warm part in his heart for people who wore black wool uniforms and mid-century Germans. It was not his thing. So any of that. And where's this motherfucking kike striker or whatever? Get this cocksucker out of here, man. I don't need a magnet for shit attention from some asshole who goes around with a fucking swastika on his profile. If he's still in here, get him the fuck out, please, mods. Thank you. Sorry. Next question. Yeah, man, To Ride the Tide said, sad to think I won't be able to read his novel. There are actually several books he was working on. And I don't know. I didn't want to say anything to his wife at this point because she's got other things on her mind. But I do want to see if he still has his notes for those various books, because there wasn't just one novel. There were several. Swamp Fox says, what was Tim's favorite book? I don't think he had a favorite book, but he definitely dug the Tao. So what else? Other questions. Who did he... it's an interesting question. And from Levity, who had long been around. Says, well, here, I guess I can show it. My dumb boomer ass. Who did he express respect for? Any persons well-known or unknown? See, this is where I wish his other people who knew him, his other friends, were around. I'd have to think about that. It was always strange with Tim. He would always shift. It would be like, if you started talking about how someone wasn't worth your attention, he would begin to point out ways in which they were. And then if you showed up and started talking about another person saying that they were worth your attention, he would point out ways in which they weren't. And it wasn't because he was just constantly trying to fuck you up or, make everything complicated. It's because he seemed to, I don't know, his main concern was ensuring that people thought about what they said before they said it. And more importantly, that they thought about what they did before they did it. Johnsky says, no more bars on your windows, Oliver. Well, with any luck, yeah. With any luck. With any luck. All right. Yeah, Johnsky, I'm moving to the state of denial, boy. All right. Dick Sharp, kind words. Waterpenny says Tim was uncensorable. Yes, indeed he was. Yes, he was. When he told that fucking judge, I pity you, madam. Yeah. He paid for that immediately. And over the ensuing 11 years. Yeah. Bilbo Balboa says, didn't spend much time around this channel, but Tim struck me as wise and well worth listening to. Thanks for having shared him with us. Hope you're doing all right. I'm fine, man. He's the one who died. Yeah, thanks for the kind words. But, yeah, for people who are just showing up, he used to tell a joke about, what's his name? Elton John, talking about Prince having died, and Elton John saying, "Why does this keep happening to me?" And Tim and his wife would laugh at that, saying, "It didn't happen to you, guy." Yeah. So Brian Solis says, yes, he did make a reference to these novels. Yeah. John Ski, Elric, Fufford, and the Grey Mouser. Yes. Shadowfire 0001 asks about, other than Tao Te Ching, what other books were in his top 10 favorites. I think I covered that. John Ski, Lord of the Four Quarters. Yes, indeed. He did mention Lord of the Four Quarters, the mythology of King Ship. He also recommended, that's John Weir Perry that you're talking about. He recommended that book, Lord of the Four Quarters. He also recommended The Far Side of Madness by Perry. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed he did. Because he was a believer in Perry's view that schizophrenia, or the presentation in terms of clinical symptoma of schizophrenia, was not an illness, but rather evidence of the attempt of the psyche to become well. Yeah, by the way, I did say Press F, and Press F is a bit cheese to be talking about your dead old friend. But the fact is, we have to have some kind of sense of humor about this, because literally I'm sitting in an empty room with a microphone in front of me, looking at a screen scrolling by while I smoke and drink. And that in and of itself is an indictment of our age. And so when I came up with the thing for Press F, I just wanted a way to say it that would make sense to people who are in the know without, the trappings and the suits of woe, without like overdoing, without protesting too much, because we should have a sense of humor about everything, even our own passing, which will be upon each and every one of us, even the youngest of us, much sooner than we believe. Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun. Or as Tim used to say, he'd quote Manson, and what was it, Manson saying? Death must be the craziest trip of all, 'cause they save it for last. Yeah, Brian, man, I got to talk with you, Brian, and some of the other guys from your crew, 'cause you were a different Sunday afternoon crew. And you guys talk more about science fiction and all kinds of stuff like that. Guy from V says, which Art of War translation? That would be the Samuel Griffith translation. He was a U.S. officer. He specifically recommended the Griffith translation of the Art of War. And he specifically said that if you think about when you went to college and they would give you your textbook and then your workbook, he said that the Tao was the textbook and that the Art of War was simply the practical application of the Tao, like a workbook. So he recommended the Macintosh translation of the Tao and the Griffith translation of the Art of War. And yes, Guy from V, Gustave Le Bon's The Crowd. Yes. All right. Faye Ale, who has another name that I recall, but I will not repeat it since you're not using it. Good to see you in the house, and I hope you are doing well, kind lady. The Red Book. Yeah. Man, I came back from Turkey, and I had been away for many years, and I returned to the U.S., and I went up to visit my friend Tim, and I was sitting on the floor. He liked to sit on the floor. He didn't care for chairs, which adds an odd little bit of irony since he was forced to sit in a wheelchair at the end. And yeah, we talked about the Muslim tradition of removing shoes when you went into the house and sitting on the floor so that no person was elevated above another. Yeah, and he said, "Turn around, Ollie. There's something there for you." And I turned around, and there was a brand new copy of the Red Book. Brand new. Brand spanking new, and it had just come out. And he said, "How'd you like a copy of that?" Books. I still have that. Still haven't fucking read it. He always laughed at me for not having read it. He said that's the most important thing for properly understanding what Jung was actually dealing with beyond everything else. All right. What else? Oh, I guess people are getting to the point where I was mentioning the books. Thanks for the kind words, Shadowfire0001. I appreciate the condolences. Jim McIntosh, yes, Tim Rudisil died about 2 weeks ago. Week and a half, 2 weeks ago. What else? Do I have a Minecraft server? No, I don't have a Minecraft server. Orthodox Phronesis says, no, there is no obituary. I am thinking that I will probably try to write an obituary, but I want to do it together with all the people who knew him. So Brian, who's in here tonight, and some other people that I'm not specifically going to name because they haven't made their names public. But I would like to write an obituary for him. The problem is filling in all the big empty spots that he wouldn't talk about. Yeah, that necklace used to be 6 feet longer till it broke in a bar fight in Bogota. So, yeah, good luck filling in the blank spaces. Sorry, ladies and gents, I'm just looking through here. Catching up. Ollie's going to have a hangover in the morning. No, I'm not. I've had like 2 whiskeys. Or maybe 3 now at most. H. Grimes says, I'd like to know where to send condolences if that's okay. There's nowhere to send them because Tim didn't give a fuck. He really didn't. He cared about his son and his wife and his immediate circle of friends. And he, like people like me or Brian, who's in here, or the other ones that I'm not going to name, when you called him up and were having a problem, and any of you were having a problem, he would help you. But otherwise, he didn't care. He really he didn't give a shit about, like, I remember sitting in his study, and I'm talking his study before he started wandering again. And so I'd go visit him down in this house on the south side of this city I lived in. And I'd go into his office. That's a good one to try to remember. What was it like going into Tim's office? Tim had told me that if you're going to marry a woman, that you have to have a place of your own, and that you have to be prepared. You must be prepared. You must realize that if you married a woman, the entire house was going to be hers, and that the best you could hope for, and he didn't lament it, he just said, look, face the fucking facts, kid. The best you could hope for is that one room would be yours, and you would have to defend it. And you'd only get one. And in his place, it was this one big room. It was a house that was probably from around 1900, so it had the southern, high ceilings. It was probably 10-foot ceilings, not as high as at my mother's. I think my mother has 12-foot ceilings, but with the picture molding way up high and the old plaster. His case, he didn't have the picture molding, but the high ceilings. It's this one back room, and every wall was covered in bookshelves, every wall. And the bookshelves were these shitty, bolted together metal bookshelves. And I said, metal bookshelves? And he said, yeah, I can't bring myself to care if I were going to do it right. I remember he told me, he said it would have to be cherry. And And he said, I can't be bothered with that nonsense. You know, he's the same kind of guy who said that there were no churches, there were only chapels, because all of manifestation was the church. And they were just loaded with all the most interesting books, all the most fucking fascinating books. You just walk from wall to wall looking at all these books. I remember just on like understandings of the devil, like there was half a bookshelf that was just books about the devil and how that figure was construed from, you know, the idea of Satan, the adversary, and the Jewish traditions, all the way up to Lucifer, the morning star, Venus, all the way through. Or you go over to the psychology section and you see like Wilhelm Reich and Adler and Neumann, whom I already mentioned, and Jung. And he'd be like, yeah, Ollie, you see that over there, that chest under the table? That's full of gold. And he'd be like, look, these are uncut rubies. And he took this dish down from one of the shelves and set it in front of me. He's like, yeah, I got this in trade in Latin America. It was just a dish. And he handed it to me. It's full of uncut rubies. It was a trip to be in that study. So many crazy books. Great books. It put it on me. Yeah. So, yeah, books. And his study. What next? Missed Conan in the reading list. As I said, he would not have been into the Conan stuff. And what else? God, it looks like I'm way behind. I'm going to have to catch up with you peoples. Astral removal. All right. Yeah, I'm just catching up with me freaking out about people talking about Nazis in the chat, so I'm way behind. What a bunch of assholes, man. People are so fucking stupid. It's such... Yeah. Ugh. They're no better than they ought to be. Yeah, man. Tweety Pie says, really appreciate how Tim knew so much about so many things. He got me to study health benefits of various mushrooms. Man, he went on a mycelium freak out for like 10 years, man. Stamets, talking nothing about mycelium and mushrooms. Man, his wife had a library that was all about plants, and he shared in quite a bit of that. Like, he had this whole thing about trees. He would talk to me about botany. See, that's the thing. What I was trying to point out when I said that this reading list that was put together for another friend, mutual friend of mine and of Tim's, is that he would tune them for your interests. He was way into botany and would be talking about pinnet and whatever the damn different terms are for the various types of leaves and how whether the stems were across from each other or alternating. He knew all that shit. And I'd walk through the woods with him and he'd talk about it. You know, so what I know about that he knew about, I only know about because he knew I was interested, and there was quite a bit more. There was quite a bit more. Orthodox Phronesis says, I know Tim talked about Christianity quite a bit, but it was never clear what his religious beliefs were. Maybe you could share. I don't know what you'd call it these days, but as long as you left a big X mark of uncertainty, because he would always shift as soon as everything seemed clear, I think you could call him a perennial traditionalist. Except he would laugh at traditionalism too. I mean, even the right-wing stuff, he'd turn around and laugh his ass off and say, I don't want anything to do with that crap. And then the next thing you know, you'd come at some left-wing thing and he'd tell you that he was to the right of Attila the Hun. So, guy from V2. Yeah, he did read Musashi's Book of the Five Rings. As a matter of fact, before he died, I told him I was reading Hagakure, and he specifically told me, he said, and this was right before he died, just not long ago, because I only finally got around to reading Hagakure, and he said, Oliver, remember, he was a man who didn't do it. He came after the time of the major violence. So remember, you're reading the work of a samurai who really was never properly in it. He was the same kind of guy who said, you can think that you've done it when you shot somebody and you haven't. And I said, well, how do you know when you've done it? And he said, when you've killed them up close and personal with a knife. That's what he said. I remember once there was a prison guard when I used to go visit him in prison. And it was just a coincidence, because he eventually went to a federal camp that was like a satellite operation from a state prison, but it was federal, and it was a camp, so it was low security. It was still a pain in the ass to go get into to visit him. And towards the end of the time period when I was visiting him there, it was before I moved back to Turkey for the second time. I was still down there visiting him. And it turned out that one guy working there as a prison guard had an older brother who was a police officer who actually knew Tim back in the days when he worked in strip clubs and was driving out biker gangs and all that kind of stuff. And it was a trip for me to see him, because I was like, oh wow, Tim wasn't just telling stories. Here's this guy who's working as a prison guard whose older brother, who was a cop, knew him. And that dude seemed to be a little bit in awe of Tim. And Tim used him as an example once, because I think he had been in the military before he became a prison guard, and he had been deployed to somewhere in former Yugoslavia, probably, I want to say Bosnia. I'm trying to remember sitting out at the visiting table outside. We sat outside so we could smoke. It was freezing. And he would come out to look at the various tables of people talking to the convicts and make sure everybody was being good before we went in to order rotten food out of the vending machines and heat them in the microwave. And I remember that guy had been deployed and had been in a combat zone. And Tim looked at him one time and he said, yeah, he's been in combat, but he's been in the perfectly safe kind. And I said, what do you mean? It's combat, but it's perfectly safe? And he said, yeah, because you're in a situation where you still have radio contact. People might be shooting at you, and yeah, you're out of luck if you catch an odd bullet or whatever, but you're not running out of ammunition. You're in radio contact with your people. You're eventually going to get air support or whatever it is, or you're going to get evacuated. It's not the same thing. I said, what do you mean the same thing? He said, it's a very different thing when you jump out of a perfectly good airplane and end up behind enemy lines, quite a distance behind enemy lines, when no one is going to help you. That's what he hammered on. He's like, it's a very different thing when you're nowhere near anyone else and you're 100% responsible for yourself. And that's where he'd start talking about the different levels of canopy in a tropical jungle and how far up the tree you have to go to sling your hammock. And that's when he'd start talking about things like you never, ever, ever, ever camp where you cook. Shit like that. So, yeah, I don't even know why I went off on that. What else? Let me scroll through here, see what else we got. Noah Solomon says, Semigog, do you think Tim's not giving a fuck, which to me looked like divestment from the corporeal, impacted his predictions because of spiritual detachment? I think there was some kind of detachment, but it had already started before he was getting old. And Tim is never a person who would make any kind of excuse for himself. So, no, I think he was generally surprised. I think he was genuinely surprised about the things that he was wrong about. And to the end, though he didn't go into it anymore, like if I'd start to push, I'd be like, what do you think is going to happen with this shit, with this and this and this that we thought was going to happen that didn't? He would say things like, Ollie, I don't give a fuck anymore. However, he still thinks that the things, or he did up until the end, think more, well, he emphasized that he didn't give a fuck, but he still said he thinks that the things that he predicted are still going to happen. So, who knows? All right. Danger-esque in here too, man. God, man, all kinds of people from back in the day. Right on. Right on, man. Don Browning, kind of you, thank you. But again, I'm not the one who died. Who's going to do a stream for me when I die? I met a traveler from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet remain stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. Look on my works, ye mighty. Oh, fuck, how does it go? Now I forgot. Ozymandias! The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear. Look on my works, ye mighty. Oh, fuck. Don't try to recite poetry when you've been drinking. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. That's a fucking butchery of Shelley. All right. 99 Iron Duke is talking about putting up a cairn. There ain't nothing easier to find in the Tennessee hills than rocks. Apparently, all the soil in Tennessee is, in that part of Tennessee, is good for growing rocks. All right. I'm way behind, as usual. Miss Busy says, are you mentoring anyone, would you? No. I'm not mentoring anyone. I have not the necessary authority. Now, I'm dealing with younger people, but I see them as peers. And that's what's most important. Don't ever take on any kind of airs with the younger that you have no business taking on. That's the other thing, man. There's certain young people who have their wits about them. I myself hope that in most cases I was one of them. I mean, to whatever extent young people can have their wits about them. Nothing is so repulsive as a what's the fucking commedia dell'arte character? Pantaloon? Who's the fucking old man? The cuckolded old man. There's nothing so ridiculous as an old man trying to lay shit on young people. Yeah, so if there's any way in which I could mentor anyone, I'm saying that the wrong way. I don't think there is. Basically, I'm going to look for peers who are younger, and then you can only share with them what you can share with them. Tim said it to me like this very early on. I was asking him something about somebody who was all fucked up, and he explained the metaphor to me exactly like this. He said, it's like you're talking to a person who climbed into a car, or who's sitting in a car, and you look over at them and you say, you realize that you're in a car, right? And the person says, yeah. And you say, okay. You realize it's moving, right? And they're like, yeah, it's moving. Like, okay, all right. And I mean, you're in the car, it's moving. You do realize it's accelerating and that you have your foot on the gas, right? And they're like, yeah, so I do. What the fuck is it to you? Okay, all right. And you realize you're going now about 80 miles an hour. Yeah. And right up ahead, there's a brick wall. And they're like, yeah, fuck you. That's all you can say. And so mentoring, I don't know, there's a certain type of authority that you have to have if you're going to mentor. Remember, the character of Mentor in the Odyssey is inspired by Athena, by the god of wisdom. Sorry, goddess. You can't play at that. Tim, it was, who told me long ago that children have an innate sense of justice, of fairness. And that's why you see it with little kids. They'll look up and they'll go, that's not fair. And they know it. They know it. And so, coming back to the idea of the pantaloon or the ridiculous old man who's some kind of cuckolded object of ridicule, never, ever, ever, ever come to young people trying to throw the mentor thing. Even Tim didn't do that to me, and his life experience relative to mine, the difference, the space, so to speak, was fucking vast. And yet still, he didn't do that. I mean, there was the case I told you about where he said, what could you do to me? However, generally speaking, he just never bullshitted. And so it set the bar kind of high. If there is somebody who's young enough that you would want to mentor them, then I would think your belief that they were worth that attention would or should cause you to take a step back and treat them as a fucking peer. Treat them as a peer who perhaps hasn't arrived yet. And so, I don't know, I'm probably going too far into this, but you can't, the innate sense of fairness of the young, and I mean, that's the other thing, young people forget that the old people were young once. And worse still, much worse still, is that the old people forget that they were young once. And so the mentor relationship really only exists on the level of recognizing them as a peer, because only when you've recognized them as a peer do they see that you're not trying to play some hierarchical game with them. And only then do you display in a meaningful sense that you recognize their value, potential, and importance. And I guess what I'm trying to say in a really stupid roundabout way is that if you can be a mentor and want to be a mentor, that the only way to do it is not to be a mentor, but to be a peer. I spent too much time on that. Hopefully some aspect of it came across. So, John Ski talking about Mao's Little Red Book. I must be way behind now. What's going on? Where are we? I think I'm going to have my last drink. God, we're coming up on fucking 3 hours. All right. I'm going to... Brian Slee! He mentioned the house metaphor. I totally forgot the house metaphor. See, this is why I'm not up to this. I need to have all the other people who knew him here with me, because that would be that would be something very different. Okay, I'm going to share the house metaphor. We got a little bit of time left. I'm going to cut out of here at 3 hours. But I'm going to have just one last dash of my delicious apple juice. And then we'll go. Somebody just mentioned Tim not wanting to ever give up his guns. He did give up his guns. He was a felon. He was not allowed to own guns. At the end, all he had was a Uberti revolver, because that's not a gun, and a Howdah pistol. But even that, man, his grip got too weak. Man, he used to tell us, and I think he took it from Castaneda, but he said, these are the greatest friends and the worst enemies that you will ever confront in life. Fear, power, knowledge, clarity, and then old age. And even in a poem of mine, I said how I long for the day when gravity becomes an enemy to a man on level ground. But yeah, okay, so this is my last little bebida, and I'm going to cover in our remaining time the house metaphor. Thank you, Brian Salee. Tim Rudisill used to talk about how most people were ensconced in darkness. They couldn't see anything around them. And when they bumped into things around them, it would bruise them and cut them, and they would be terrified of it, and they would think they were being attacked. But what they needed to do was turn on the fucking light. And thereby they would see that they were locked in a broom closet. And all these things that they thought that were monsters attacking them in the darkness were just shit on the shelves that they were bumbling and stumbling into. And in a way that only Tim could do at that time because of the nature of his voice, which, to be honest with you, even in the earliest Chainsmoke clips, trust me, you're only hearing a strange echo of. He would talk about how once you turned on the light and recognized you were in the broom closet, you could step out into the house. And he would at that point begin to refer to dreams that people have of houses. We actually went off on this whole thing about how it's most likely that dreams that reference a house reference what he would call the greater or lesser self, whereas when you found yourself having a dream in a car, particularly when you were like in the passenger seat but the car was driving and no one was in the driver's seat, those kind of dreams were in the vehicle, that's more likely it referred to the ego and not strictly in any kind of Freudian sense, in a broader sense. And actually you can find it in old clips where we talk about things like ego and persona complex. He would talk about walking around the house and seeing that it was your house, that it was what you had, what was yours. You could explore its upper floors, its middle floors, its lower floors, the basement, secret doors. But at the end, with this metaphor, he would come all the way around to, again, as I said, he would build something up, and then when you were convinced that that was what you were supposed to be paying attention to, he would utterly deflate it, and you would be forced to confront whatever the new thing was on the game board. And in this case, what he would usually say is, yeah, and eventually what you could do is open the door and fucking walk outside. So it would lead you along with this idea there was increasing discovery and all these other aspects of everything that were important that one must come to grips with, or should, or could at least come to grips with. And you'd be like, wow, what's the house? What's the rest of it? These sprawling aspects of the self, my inheritance, what I am, and to whatever extent that I integrate with all that has come before, with my ancestors and my culture and my history and my traditions. What is the house? And just when you were starting to go about the house, he would be like, he'd totally deflate that and be like, why not walk outside? That was a thing about him. Now, I'm not sure that was what Brian was talking about, but it reminded me, and I do not doubt that Brian has heard that metaphor. Okay, I'm way behind. Guy from V says, tell us about Tim's arsenal. He was not into fancy new guns. He liked perfectly old-fashioned ones. He gave me a few guns, and there's nothing, no black rifle, nothing. I mean, he'd talk about how a 50 caliber would like turn someone's head into red mist, but he didn't have any. And he didn't seem interested in them. He liked old-fashioned guns. He didn't think any of this new fancy shit was required. He thought it was all a bunch of nonsense. All right. We have a little bit of time left here, about 10 minutes. Brian McKay says, did Tim like Machiavelli? Yes, but he would constantly talk about how you didn't need to read The Prince. What was the rest of it? Machiavelli's works. He would say, everybody is into The Prince, blah, 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 blah. But he said, what you really need to learn, what you really need to read is, I guess it's the Discourses on Livy, is it? Yes, because it's about lessons on how a republic should be started and structured. Yes, he constantly went into how everybody focused on the prince when it's more important that they should read the Discourses on Livy to find out how he really felt about things. All right. Philosophicat's in the house. Hello, Missy Lady. Yeah, Tim died. Tim died about 2 weeks ago. I guess you have picked that up now. Glad to see you, though, and I hope you're well. All right. Johnsky. Excellent. Actually, it's a little bit like that. Johnsky writes, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire on the shores of Orion. I've seen sea beams glitter in the darkness at the Tannhauser Gate. I mean, it sounds a little bit like a Blade Runner, which I think inspired that. But yeah, there was definitely, yeah, okay. It's definitely a Blade Runner reference. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, everybody keeps saying, tell us the backstory, or I'm sorry, Dancing Israelis, it keeps saying, tell us the backstory of Tim. I've shared enough of the backstory of Tim. There's quite a bit that Tim was not allowed to talk about, and so didn't tell me. And anything that to me seems like it crosses the line, I'm not going to talk about. Because Tim did discuss how people will come and visit you. And I don't want anybody to visit me. So, yeah. Johnsky says, no stream for you, Oliver, when you die. We'll just go through your pockets for loose change. Yeah, you ain't going to find much, buddy. You ain't going to find much. I'll be smoking butts. Man, FA Tuesday says academic agent might do a Semiagog's eulogy stream. He's quite a bit younger than him. He's only about, I don't know, between 10 and 15 years younger than me. No, he's not. I think AA is awesome. Love his stuff. Totally dig his crew. I get along with everybody in his crew. They're good people. And they're enough of all of them are enough of a half step off from the world. All of them. This is a good thing. Even though I'm talking about my dead friend, I got to talk about my living good friends. So, prudentialist, dealing with having gotten a kidney transplant. Much like my old friend who had Marfan syndrome, where he is confronting the fact that he is likely not going to live as long as everybody else. And you know what that fucking gave him? Perspective. And that set him 1/2 step off the line of what everybody else has to deal with, which means he's sort of a dweller in the middle space, right? Or take a look at Academic Agent himself, coming from 2 worlds. Some of my best old friends are half-halves, right? They come from half this world and half another. And so they straddle 2 worlds. And so they're in between, which means invariably they have a kind of perspective. Or take a look at John D., right? He's all right-wing and hardcore, but he's gay. That tends to put people 1 step off, 1 step at a remove from the rest of the world, and it gives them perspective. And those are the kinds of people that that generally I get along with, because for my own reasons, I am 1 step off from the rest of the world in my own way. It's maybe a good thing, or maybe it's something that I'll be mocked about, or already am being mocked about. I don't even know, and I don't give a fuck. However, to come back to the original question, I don't see Academic Agent doing a eulogy stream. That is not his style. He would totally throw out some kind of heel shit at the last minute. I'd be like, yes, well, we're all sad to see that Semiagog is gone. But did I mention the time that I don't know, Ric Flair, I don't know, it would be some kind of fucking wrestling reference that none of us would be able to yeah, there it is. I've had plenty of alcohol now, and there's only 5 minutes left. So now I'm going to scroll through. God, now I'm running across the part where people are trying to help me get through Ozymandias. Sorry, man. $99 Iron Duke says, the fuck, am I actually right? To me, it was why I admired all the old chaps I knew when I was a teenager who were World War I and World War II vets, etc. Yeah, because you wanted to... If a man's going to go looking for advice, then look for it from somebody who fucking has seen something. That's all I got to say. Whenever in your life, what is it? It's something in Hamlet. It says, whatever, when you find a friend, tried and true, or some shit like that. I think it's Laertes talking, and he says something like, grapple them to you with hoops of steel, or something like that. I don't remember. I've been drinking. But the point is, you will know it when you meet people who are not full of shit, who've actually seen something, and especially if they no longer give a fuck. Because if they no longer give a fuck, they're not trying to get anything out of you. They're not trying to put the fucking shine on you. They're not trying to fucking jive and bullshit you. Those people, listen to them. Grapple them to you with hoops of steel, or whatever the line is. Yeah, look for the older people who've actually seen something. Nothing is so poisonous and destructive as the idea that generations should not speak one to another, because it destroys the ability of those who have more experience to communicate and share their understandings. I won't say wisdom, although in some cases it's there, but usually just understandings is enough, and it's worth it. It destroys the ability of the older generations to share their understandings with the younger ones. All right. 3 minutes out. Cephalopod X says, I can't scroll back in the chat. Is Tim okay? No, he's dead. However, the good news is he doesn't give a fuck. God, man, there are people actually trolling here for my dead friend. This is why I could never take this shit seriously enough to do it online. This is what happens. Do not cast your pearls before swine. All right. What proof is that apple juice? I do not know. Am I going to catch up? I'm so way behind. Way, way behind. God, I thought I'd catch up. Jesse J says, Semigog, did Tim ever mention if he was in contact with the Sanity for Sweden channel? Tim seemed to really respect that guy. All I know is that Tim watched the channel and really liked Stefan, is it? I'm trying to remember. I watched that channel a lot too, and he was not full of shit. He was a nice guy. You know, actually, I totally forgot about his channel. I have to go check. I liked him too. Yeah, I don't know if he ever talked to him, but yes, he did like him a lot, and he did respect him. And from what I saw of his channel, I liked him too. Yeah, that's a trip. I totally forgot about Sanity for Sweden. I got to go back and look at him again. Yeah. All right. Looks like we're coming up on the end here. If Tim were a rifle, would he be an M1 Garand or an M14? No, he'd be 22 long rifle. He always told me you could put 100 rounds in either of your pockets and still jog for 10 miles. He was all about the 22. All about the 22 long rifle. Had no interest in any of that other shit, and always insisted if you had a 22, you could get anything else you wanted. Did not care about any of that. God, man, I'm so far behind. I'm trying to catch up here before I end. Fiend J is talking about bag puss. The fuck is going on? I've been way, way, way back. I've been blathering about my whatnot, and this chat has been grooving right along. All right, I think I'm getting to the end. I got to the end. All right. Yeah, we're at 3 hours. So, man. Beginning self did not begin. No ending can there be. Who holds fast to these truths shall win to immortality. And then there's what the rest of us get. Thank you very, very much. No shit. Thank you very, very much for everyone who dropped in this evening and hung out to listen to me blather. And thank you very, very much to everyone who tuned in for all of these discussions I had with my friend Tim. And yeah, I'm sorry to see him go. But nothing stays. Nothing. Nothing. So make it count when you're here. Drink deep from the cup, you know. Stick your snout in the flowers. It's that shit from Whitman. Some kind of primordial yawp. Let your yawp echo. Be here. To come back to a metaphor of Tim's, he always said it is the coin of your life. You can spend it only once. And you're going to have to live with what you spent it on. So yeah, thank you very, very much. It's cool seeing all these names in here that I hadn't seen for a long time. I shall miss him. And I appreciate you all dropping in. And I hope to see you again. Don't forget, this channel is going to be up and down here for the next approximately month and a half. I hope to run to the hills and get the fuck out of these human hive shitholes and get to some place where I can breathe free. But I will have an internet connection. And this Semiagog channel will continue. So, be well, ladies and gentlemen.